Welcome to Web3 Unpacked, everyone. I'm Rich Pasqua, and today joining us is Collin Woodward, President and General Counsel of StealthTest, a secure cloud-based private environment that enables teams to create their own Ethereum and Polygon test networks. Welcome, Collin.
Thanks for having me, Rich. Great to be here.
Yeah, of course. And we're definitely eager to learn more about this product and this platform that you're building with your team. But before we do that, I always love to ask our guests about how they got into Web3. And you have an interesting history as an entrepreneur, and having built different law firms for yourself, probably on the small to medium size, which is awesome. How did you kind of roll from 2.0 world and legal world into the Web3 world?
Yeah, happy to kind of share my journey here. So I actually have not owned my own law firm in the past. However, I've been part of numerous large law firms. And as it just so happened in 2017, just around the time that that previous bull market cycle was really kicking off, I had a colleague of mine at the law firm that I was working at that time. We actually shared a wall together, office to office. He popped into my office one day and he's like, "Hey, you ever heard of this thing called crypto and blockchain?" And I said, "No, Dave, I have no idea what you're talking about. Why don't, you got 30, 40 minutes to sit down and chat about it?" And so we hung out for a bit, and he kind of shared everything that he knew about crypto at that time, which was largely that it was just, in his words, a kind of a multi-coin funny casino of sorts that took place on the internet. And I was really curious and very engaged, and went home that evening and kind of did my own research and signed up for a bunch of exchange accounts, tried to learn the X's and O's of what exactly blockchain technology is and why people are even building on top of it, right? And just kind of followed along throughout the ebbs and the peaks and the troughs of that particular bull cycle. Now, just as quickly as I made a bit of money that cycle, I lost it in the same breath, right? As many people do the first time that they encounter crypto. But the kind of the bear market winter of 2018 set in, and I was relatively undeterred and extremely fascinated still with blockchain technology at that time. And so I really started to network more aggressively. I started to consume lots of great educational content, predominantly like podcasts, many fantastic, much like the one you put on here, right? And just kind of expand my network and then begin to fold in, crypto and Web3 practice into what I was doing on the legal side of things in my professional kind of day-to-day life. And eventually, in 2020, that led to some really unique opportunities where I was, offered the chance to leave my law firm job and join this fantastic startup and kind of head into this wild world of regulatory uncertainty and kind of, build the plane as you're flying it kind of mentality, right? And so I joined up here officially in the beginning of 2021, and been here for about 2.5, going on 3 years now. So.
Wow, that's good. And 2.5, 3 years is like, for a lot of our listeners and viewers, it's actually a pretty long time and a very good run with like this early stage world that we're in early stage companies. And your story is very similar. Once you kind of get that bug in your ear and you're like, if you're the least bit curious person, you're going to go, what is this? Right. And I love that. I refer to FTX as the Ponzi scheme built up on top of a casino. So it's very easy for someone outside looking in to go, oh yeah, it's a Ponzi scheme. It's a casino. It's this, that, and the other thing. And they would be right in some respects. But 99.9% of the people out there got into it for the right reasons, right? Including myself. At first it was like, you throw a couple bucks in and see what happens. And then, whoa, then you read the white paper, then you start to to follow the rabbit hole, and you really start to understand that this thing has a lot of meaning behind it and a lot of purpose. And in a world devoid of purpose and guidance, it's a way to kind of funnel some energy into something that's great. And to me, it means, trust and the idea of technology being kind of this intermediary between two humans, because we need that. That was really interesting to me. So with that said, how do you feel, Collin? How do you feel that Web3 or blockchain, crypto for that matter, in the DeFi world will change the world fundamentally? Do you think it will, or?
I really do, provided that governments all over the world, not just the United States, allow it to flourish, right? That's kind of the one caveat here, because we're fighting some fairly existential battles on the policy and regulatory side right now. I remain optimistic there, but I think there's lots of builders sitting on the sidelines right now, waiting for a bit of clarity from the government, from administrative agencies, regulators, right, et cetera. Kind of the thesis here, in my view, is that the internet is increasingly becoming a foundation for where we spend pretty much most of our time in our lives, right? Even those folks that are juggling families simultaneously. It's where we're creating this ledger of society, both financially and culturally, right? And we're doing this perhaps without even knowing it. This was true before COVID happened, and it's now more true than ever since COVID, as kind of our collective reliance upon the internet has only accelerated from there. And the general kind of central point around this is that I believe, as many others do, that blockchains will become the backbone of this next iteration of the internet, right? Especially post-COVID. And we've identified this as largely just Web3. And blockchain technology can change the world because it provides these global, boundaryless, industry-agnostic opportunities for innovation and growth. It doesn't matter what you're building, where you're building it. All of these systems can be globally interconnected and can facilitate economic freedom and open competition on a scale like we really haven't seen before, in terms of what global economic opportunity has to offer and the ways we go about doing business, on a global scale. And blockchains really can be the medium where people have the opportunity to possess and maintain a permissionless ownership over their digital property and their online data. Right now, all of the digital property and online data that we interact with is owned in silos by these large corporations, right? And blockchain provides the medium by which we can flip that business model on its head and restore the true value of all of our data, which is immense, of course, right? That's why these billion-dollar companies even exist. Restore that value to the people that actually generate the data and should own the data. So that's kind of the long and the short there.
Well said, Collin. And there's so many little bits and bobs in there that I love. Oh, you hit all my keywords, my trigger words. Decentralization is king, right? And it will flip traditional business on its head. It'll make things faster, a lot more secure, and just trusted in general. You also brought up regulatory issues, specifically with the U.S. government. We're going to hit on that in a little bit. And so many things in there that we'll touch on. And some of them I'd like to have you back and open those topics up a little bit more if you're interested in those topics as much as I am, which it sounds like. Now, to get us started off here, can you give us give our audience a little bit of insight into what StealthTest is? What's the overview?
Sure. So high level, StealthTest is an API-based Web3 developer platform and tool set The primary feature set there is that we offer private test networks for most EVM compatible chains, right? And each one of these private test networks is effectively an isolated node that allows for the private and secure testing of smart contracts, of token assets, of kind of a number of related things, all within these collaborative sandboxes that we've created, right? And within these sandboxes, we have allowed multiple users to be able to interact and participate simultaneously in the iteration and development of any type of Web3 project. So that's kind of the chief value proposition there. And really kind of at its core, what it is an end-to-end solution where you can build using either existing smart contracts or your own custom smart contracts, test within these private test networks, as opposed to on a public test net where there's lots of, opportunity for folks to scrape data and gain kind of an unfair advantage. And then when you're ready and you're really confident in the product you've built and, the security of your smart contracts, the verifiability of the token metadata and associated information, then you can deploy right to mainnet. So.
Yeah. And, looking at what makes this kind of different or set apart from, say, a truffle or a hard hat or anything like that, I'm hearing is, any kind of testing, especially with anything with finance or personal data, as you were mentioning, it's super sensitive. And test nets are pretty good and everyone uses them, but a closed kind of a sealed off node, your own node to test on, that simulates the entire, blockchain environment, that's really interesting and much needed, I think. And I think that's the differentiator for you, right? I mean,
that is the biggest differentiator, yes. And, we also kind of enable these distributed teams to develop and test and collaborate using kind of an aggregate tool set, right, within this singular isolated node hub. Many of the other solutions that exist out there in the market today, including the likes of Truffle and Hard Hat. And just a kind of a side note, I think Truffle was actually wound down by consensus recently, or perhaps subsumed by Hard Hat in some capacity. But both of those solutions, the biggest difference is that they're focused on the single developers working on their local machine and leveraging kind of public networks, as opposed to what we provide, which is private networks, where you can have, upwards of a dozen people operating within that single sandbox.
Yeah, and as I learn about this, and I know you're kind of catering to Ethereum and Polygon, blockchains, but are you going to open up to others? Do you cater to other networks as well?
Absolutely. So our kind of like principal driver here is that we want to provide this tool set to pretty much any EVM compatible network that's out there and has, most importantly, an active developer kind of network and user base, right? Because that's the principal addressable market for us is developer teams wherever they're working on whatever blockchain they're working, right? And so right now, of course, we have Ethereum and Polygon compatibility. We also are live on Moonbeam and on Arbitrum as well, both Arbitrum 1 and Arbitrum Nova. And then in the pipeline here over the next month or so, I would say Optimism will arrive, and we're looking at Binance Smart Chain as well.
Oh, interesting. All right. That is pretty cool. And, so you're kind of platform agnostic right now, but it is about, I'm a big proponent of, you don't need to throw the biggest net. You just have to throw the right net and capture the right audiences. And those that you mentioned do have very, very robust developer communities. And it's
as does Solana, by the way.
Solana.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we are actively looking at Solana. Of course, it's not EVM compatible, right? So
right.
Might have to get a little Rust in our lives, but The Solana network is very active, and I've been increasingly impressed with the number of like new applications and projects that I've seen launch on Solana in the past year or so. Notwithstanding the kind of related FTX fiasco and Sam's influence there. So
Yeah, I think you hit it, and we've covered Solana, and we've had a few folks from Solana on the podcast, and it's always good. They're doing. I think they're really one of the more contemporary Web3 companies, if you will. I don't know even how to put it, but they're doing really interesting things that catch people's eyes and ears and hearts and minds. And I kind of felt I started using their network. I went to their physical stores. I purchased things with the Phantom wallet and Sol, and it was just very fluid and it felt natural. And I was like, kudos. These guys are doing some really interesting things, and they're, they've got an office in New York. I've been down there before. They're just like very welcoming. They even have a co-working space in Manhattan, so other startups, they want you to be around them. That they have a good energy, very positive environment they set up, not just virtually but physically too. So I appreciate that, and I wish them all the luck, and I hope so, because I think we're all invested in some of that. But I think the ecosystem is great, and I'm a true believer. We have a lot of people from the Cosmos on the podcast as well. So tremendous amount of energy and really smart people pushing that blockchain and platform forward. So awesome stuff. Now tell us about, I think we kind of understand who your audience is, which is the developer community, but what does your reach look like? Are you purely domestic right now? Are you going, you'd have to be global. I think you're global day one if you're in Web3, but where are you hitting? Where are you going? How big is your community right now?
Yeah, so we have active users in states all across the country here in the United States, of course. And then we have countless others in numerous countries across the globe as well. With a particular emphasis, I would say, on the Asia-Pacific region, where we are finding right now that most of the continued Web3 development is continuing to occur, as it's relatively unimpeded by the regulatory headwinds that we have in this country right now, right? And it's very evident that the adoption of blockchain technology and digital assets associated with blockchain technology is going to be the thing of the next 10 years in the Asia-Pacific region, and increasingly, I think, across the EU as well. The EU, of course, kind of got out ahead and adopted MiCA, which is a regulatory framework for stablecoins and kind of more fungible tokens, right? It doesn't address DeFi or NFTs or anything like that. But knowing that these European regulators and policymakers have already taken really tremendous steps to build this framework for a brand new industry and class of assets is incredibly encouraging, despite kind of the fact that there may be disagreements with the kind of the more technical outcomes of what MiCA tends to provide. So.
Yeah, and as we have our eyes on lots of different companies around here, the Asia regions are on fire. They're really hitting it. The tremendous amount of gaming, Web3 gaming solutions coming out of Asia, even their own DeFi systems, and really encouraging and moving quite fast. Now, when in contrast a little bit to the United States, who is kind of stuck in quicksand a little bit, we can get into that a little bit more later.
Or head in the sand, one of the two.
Or yes, head in the sand or somewhere else maybe. Thank you, Mr. Gensler, and the SEC team. So Europe has their own Web3 blockchain issues, but they're actually pushing ahead, and you're seeing companies, large DeFi companies, moving their headquarters over to London, right? Okay. It's probably what I would do if I was stuck in the situation. You want to, it's important right now that Web3 founders and developers, their heads down. They don't want to deal with this stuff. It's really annoying.
They don't have
And it's
time.
like, yeah, right. Or basically don't have the time to deal with this stuff. The government should be working with and for us, right? They work for us. That means they need to work with us. This is perfectly illustrated. Coinbase and Brian Armstrong and his team. I always give him props because they continuously have an open door policy with the U.S. government. They want to partner with them. They want to solve problems with them. And most importantly, they want to help educate them. But yet, hey, here we are. So it's not for the lack of effort on our part.
It certainly is not. I can confirm that. Yeah.
Yep. And as we get into this world, I'm curious because I really think your background in legal and corporate law is super interesting and I think really applicable for one, the product you're working on, but two, the broader Web3 blockchain landscape. I think it's really interesting. How is your background helping your team and subsequently helping your customers?
Yeah, sure. So trustless data is kind of one of the core elements of distributed ledger technology, right? My background as a corporate lawyer also intersects with a practice that was heavily involved in kind of data privacy and security matters, right? And that background has really helped inform, on the StealthTest side, product-related decisions on, what, how, and why we choose to build the way we have decided to build, why we took kind of more of a SaaS-based infrastructure approach to providing Web3 developers with kind of this toolkit they need to create novel applications, and then hopefully, as a collective, move this industry from a small tech niche, right, to something that achieves mainstream adoption, right?
Yeah, and it is tools like this that is going to foster mainstream adoption. Meaning, if you're making the lives of developers and we've talked to similar platforms in the past who have no code solutions, that it opens the door. The easier you make the developers' lives in the day-to-day, the faster and more products we're going to get and the tighter they're going to be, especially using your tools. Now, with that said, you and I were talking before, and I think we agree, like security is paramount. Not just for Web 2 and DeFi and everything else, but extremely important for Web 3. How are you guys approaching cybersecurity and protecting people's intellectual property and so on?
Sure. So as you kind of alluded to there, competent and reliable Web3 security should already be, but increasingly will be, table stakes for the maturation of this industry as a whole, right? If our aim and our goal is to bring in as much enterprise and consumer adoption as possible, then we need to be thinking about these kind of quote unquote legacy Web 2 kind of operational components, such as privacy, security, and compliance, right? Because all of these legacy businesses already require this as kind of even a basic consideration for doing business, right? Quick anecdote. When we were initially, going out and building StealthTest and testing our product market fit, we were the team behind Gary Vaynerchuk's VFriends project, if you're familiar with that, right?
Yeah.
And of course, Gary approached us. Gary, he wanted to build this project, but didn't really necessarily know the X's and O's of how to execute on that, right? What he had done is, of course, as you might know, he drew these 10,000 different kind of illustrations that would eventually be associated with his non-fungible token, NFT series, right? And after he had created these assets and we had developed a smart contract, and he was ready to think about, test the testing process before going live and everything, we began testing on a public testnet like Gorley, and quickly realized, like, wow, we cannot do this. We can't do this for an entrepreneur, let alone an enterprise level client. There's no appetite for having that proprietary data, that intellectual property, put on a public testnet where it can be front run, it can be scraped, right? Bad actors can do any number of sophisticated attacks to figure out ways to identify smart contract exploits, or just manipulate a market before it's even ready to exist, right? And so control and kind of intention around these things was really paramount for Gary and his team. And so what we did is we built out these private testing environments for Gary and his team so that he could make sure that all the metadata associated with these 10,000 tokens was correct. And as you might note, he has a significant number of different like metadata related traits for each of these tokens. So it was no small task. And it was certainly no small task back in, I think that was like Q2 of 2022 or something like that, before like these 10,000 PFP NFT projects really had reached a kind of a mass point in the market, right? So we were kind of helping Gary trailblaze in a way, and doing it in a way that would be scalable for larger, more sophisticated enterprise clients.
Yeah, Gary's always been for several years now. He's been kind of doing what most people in marketing and communications, excuse me, should be doing. Meaning, try, fall on your face, try again, pick yourself up. Gary's done other projects in New York City where he had a host of, I think, one or two really high-end restaurants that he was supporting, and he tokenized it. And I was like, wow, like a little early, but awesome, and it's really cool. And then COVID hit, right? Okay, there you go. So, or it was thereabouts. It was like kind of before and during, I forgot the time period, but really interesting. And I applaud him and anyone, cutting the edge and trying. It doesn't matter. Who cares? The other point you brought up, Collin, was, if you're doing public testnets, working on public testnets, your information's out there. You don't have to be some crazy underground hacker to figure out how to siphon, as you put it, data or IP. So to me, that's like the golden ticket for you guys, keeping things kind of bundled and private. Yes, you want to use a decentralized network. Doesn't mean you guys are, trading in your blockchain decentralization hats. It just means that you're taking one more, or you're allowing people and organizations to take one more preventative step. And if you know a lot about cybersecurity. I've been learning as I've been talking to FIO and other really sophisticated cybersecurity companies, that most of these attacks, or the way people lose money, is the conversion or the interface, the 2.0 interface into the blockchain, right? So some people don't realize, like, not everything is on the blockchain. You have to do some transactions or make decisions through a GUI or a user interface before you even become indelibly, inked on the blockchain. That's usually where those attacks happen. And then traditional phishing schemes and whatnot. But
yeah, of course, social engineering as well. I mean,
yep.
Front ends can be a critical target point as well. There's lots of different vectors, right?
Absolutely. And we're talking about security and smart contracts, and every time I hear a smart contract, and one of the things we preach here is utility, 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 right? So I love myself, the Bored Apes, and all of the other wacky NFTs out there. A lot of people got smoked, recently with those. A lot of people made a lot of money with those, recently. So I love it, but really NFTs to me are about intelligent contracts that can be crafted and customized for your business application. How do you feel developing and testing smart contracts will increase confidence and bolster or help essential businesses?
Yeah, so smart contracts are kind of the essential application layer to all these really innovative products that are to be built on Web3, right? Without the smart contract, what do you really have in ways of being able to effectively utilize a blockchain, right? Smart contracts are what help these projects come alive, right? It's the big differentiator between, a protocol like Bitcoin and a protocol like Ethereum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these smart contracts are amazing tools. And they do kind of form the foundation for these applications. But at the end of the day, it's just code written by people, right? And that code can contain math bugs, bad logic, faulty verifications, incorrect permissions, any number of other like errors and exploits that can put assets and corporate reputations at risk, right? And so by testing these smart contracts in advance, prior to a public launch or some other kind of activation, right? An innovative company or team can ensure that they won't be susceptible to those errors or exploits in the smart contract, and that their launch will go off seamlessly, and they will maintain all of the reputation and goodwill that they've built up with their consumer base, right? And that reputation and goodwill is something that can be dissolved very quickly if things go wrong in a public setting.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's just another selling point for StealthTest, and it's huge. And people have to realize if you're rolling out a huge campaign predicated on blockchain technology, and more specifically NFTs or smart contracts, beyond a static or animated GIF or whatever you want to call it, you really need to be buttoned up, because that is sink or swim time. I think in general, people interacting with new tools within a Web3 environment are used to things kind of having a few hiccups,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of dicey, or not dicey, but shaky here and there. But you do need to really put your best foot forward and make sure that everything is buttoned up. And when I think of my mind goes straight to, and I love the analogy of using NFTs for supply chain intelligence, supply chain fulfillment, from a manufacturer to a distributor to a consumer. What does that look like, right? And there's so many little facets and details that can be put in there, from accounting to legal to finance and DeFi, very important topics, important processes that need to be, pressure tested 100% before they go out the door. So yeah, it's exciting. And once you start to help make people's lives easier, then people can innovate, then people can dream and build. And that's what we want.
Yep. They can focus on the important part, which is the building and the experimentation, right? And they're not distracted by kind of, the other kind of nuances and complexities that take their time away from being a technical builder. Yeah.
Yeah, dream and, try. That's what this whole beautiful world is about. Just try, go for it, make something. If it blows up, great. You're one person in a garage. If you got something, maybe it can go bigger, and you could be the next StealthTest. So, now you and I have been, tapping into the idea of, the U.S. and regulatory ups and downs and woes. How are you guys positioned, or how are you just in general navigating this kind of indecisive world of regulations now?
Yeah, the answer to that is relatively easy, and that is participation, education, and advocacy.
Yeah.
And I dedicate a large part of my kind of weekly time to not only continuing to go out there and build really amazing products that I think that the industry desperately needs and will find valuable, but also continuing to have conversations with the really fantastic advocacy groups that are out there, and the policymakers themselves. That's the best way to kind of not only maintain a narrative but change a narrative. And we're more at the change narrative, point in time right now, of course, because we have some headwinds in front of us. But I would certainly encourage anyone and everyone that is interested in helping to change the narrative and push things forward from a policy standpoint in a way that really fits with the ethos of blockchain and Web3 by getting in touch with groups such as the DeFi Education Fund or the Blockchain Association, Coin Center. These are three groups that have just done an immeasurable amount of work on behalf of our industry, and it's really not talked enough about. And then, the other thing I would mention is that the policy and legal teams that Coinbase, Polygon, and Solana have, in particular, those three organizations, is just world class. Really fantastic people. They know all their stuff. They have great relationships, and they're having the hard conversations, with the folks in Washington on our behalf right now. And there's no shortage of ways that you can't get involved and make sure that your voice is heard and make sure that your products are protected from the long arm of the law and over regulation, most importantly, right?
Yeah.
And I would be happy to provide any additional information so that the audience can stay involved there.
Absolutely. And thank you, Collin. That was awesome. And we're going to list those organizations when we go live with this, hopefully this week. We would love to list those out, and we will. There'll be links below, because you're 100% right. There's only a small faction of Web3 developers or communities that are actually fighting for the masses. And that's one of the reasons why I give Brian Armstrong and his team huge, huge props, because they're doing a lot of the hard work that's going to make our lives easier later on down the road, or just create awareness. And you're 100% right. Advocacy and education is key right now, because people are either they're in it, but they don't know, or they're not in it and they're just like, it's a casino. No, you have to tell people what the benefits are, keep educating. But even with law, and now I'm dipping into accounting and understanding. I have been for a while, for a few years now. I've been very curious as to how the government's actually going to, work this as far as taxes. We have a little series going on with an accountant from Colorado. Really interesting dialogue around that. And he's a little bit more like your traditional, I shouldn't say traditional, but, accountant who's like, they will come for you. They will come for you. I don't care what it is. They will come for you. I don't get that paranoid just yet. Really, it's about when you exit the markets is when you're going to get dinged on cap gains or
That's
whatever
right.
new tax they dream up. They'll rebrand that one. They'll rebrand cap gains, crypto gains. I don't know. But you're 100% right. And this is, it is the most important part of this. And there's so many little inner workings behind the scenes. And one of the things that really kills me is that a lot of people, and I'm just going to say maybe a large contingency of younger enthusiasts or investors or builders, they get their news from all over the place, on X or formerly Twitter, and it's really noisy. It's really, really noisy, and it's rife with misinformation. People get excited when prices go up. They say whatever they want to say on podcasts and news outlets. And there's really only a handful of people who are really doing a good job of just kind of not getting too bombastic about, the entire environment, and just kind of cutting to the core of what they know and what they know to be true from a news and legal and legislation standpoint. So I'm happy when I hear people going directly and working with organizations to help and contribute to it. Now, when we talk about contributions, we can't forget about communities, and Web3 is all about community, right? And years ago I started, and it was like, all right, build your community. Web2 was like, build a massive community. You've got millions of people. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I really don't care about millions of people. I mean, I do, but in the digital space, that's not going to help me. The right people. So the dialogue I've been having with different founders and creators and innovators these days is like, we don't want everyone. We don't need everyone, but we do want the right people who are advocates. They understand the technology at its core and could advocate and help us spread the word, not only for our product, but spread the crypto word, if you will, or blockchain word as well. How are you guys? What does your community look like? How are you managing it? It's always an important thing for new people coming in to hear this. Where do your people come from?
Without a doubt. I want to touch upon a comment you had just a minute or two ago, and then it'll kind of dovetail into the community answer, I think. So as kind of a member of the Web3 community, whether you're a builder or you're just a market observer or participant, right? If you're getting your news largely from what one might call the echo chamber of X or Twitter, you should definitely be aware that the reality on the outside is far different than what you might hear on the inside as kind of a dedicated user of that application, right? Anecdotally, on the regulatory and policy side of things, I can tell you from speaking directly with congressional staffers and people on the Hill themselves that most Congress people do not hear from their constituents about Web3 in any capacity, right? Whether it's, hey, this particular area of Web3 needs to be protected, or hey, these are really the novel use cases that we're developing on blockchain for. They just don't hear enough directly from their constituents. And that's one of the biggest problems that the industry has right now is we might think that we're being loud in the echo chamber of Twitter, but in fact, we have our voices is quiet as a mouse to the people that really matter in Washington right now, that are taking it upon themselves to write the rules for us, which is, of course, dangerous, right? And so, again, I just can't reiterate enough how important it is to get involved, participate, and collectively as an industry, we need to get louder. Not louder for the sake of being loud, but louder with intention and louder with purpose. And we need to kind of band together so that, we can create a sort of like grassroots lobby of sorts to help advocate for our positions and for the things that we want to build, individually and collectively, right? Now, going back to the community question, I think that our main mission and purpose here is to go out and find these developer teams and build relationships with these developer teams wherever they are and wherever they might reside, right? Whether it's a small dev team that's just looking to, prop up some sort of DeFi exchange or protocol of some sort, or whether it's a dev team that's situated within a large Fortune 500 company, which we do business with as well, that is looking to take some sort of innovative Web3 strategy and implement it, right? But they need and require the right tools to do so. So it's our kind of mission to make sure that we're identifying where all these different developer teams are at, and constantly have, dynamic conversations with them, understand their needs, understand their hesitancies, for whatever reason, and continue building, on their behalf and with their interests in mind. That's kind of the core of what we strive to do here.
So many interesting and really valid points in there. We'd need another hour or two to unpack that one. But I completely hear where you're coming from. I mean, these are your core audiences. And, as a user experience designer for many years, a creative director, you don't start a project until you talk to your community. And once you do that, one, you've got a better strategy, but the strategy doesn't end there. The discussion doesn't end there. It's constantly, as new updates are rolled out, or new features, functionality, security, whatever it may be, rolls out, you need to continuously listen to your audience, because they're going to help you build and shape the design of this product. So really, really good stuff. So Collin, as we're wrapping up a little bit here, I kind of love the idea of hearing about new ideas and partners, and, you could have corporate partners. Maybe there's a big team. I think, maybe you're looking to partner with the Solana, the broader Solana development teams, but are there projects out there that are really, beyond the big boys, people percolating on these blockchains, developers or products that are really interesting to you?
Yeah, and this is another topic that we would probably need to dedicate a whole
Yep.
show to as well. I mean, there are so many things going on kind of behind the scenes in terms of innovative novel development. I guess like the short list would include, the tokenization of real world assets. That is going to be a really phenomenal market once the politics issues are cast aside and the industry is ready to adopt this kind of new way of representing property rights, only digital property rights, right? That's really what we're talking about here. There's a countless number of like token-based rewards and loyalty programs that are out there right now, many of which I'm actively involved in because I'm just really fascinated to see how they evolve over time. Starbucks and Nike's .swoosh come to mind. Those are really fantastic initiatives put on by some of the most forward-thinking legacy Web2 companies out there. And big applause for them for taking the initiative to proactively put together these Web3 strategies and activate on them, rather than just merely sitting on the sidelines and waiting for the rules to be written before they get a green light of sorts, right? PayPal as well, same kind of boat, right? They went and had internal discussions, and they're like, we are pushing out our own stablecoin. Let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah.
This
I
will
think
sit
they
alongside Tether.
I think they
and
released it just the day ago, like a couple of days ago, right? So, applaud to PayPal. I love that. It's fantastic. Nike with Artifact, partnering with Artifact, and I mean, crazy cool next gen, innovative marketing and product ideas. They're doing fantastic work on that end. And I share the same interest in real world meeting Web3 as far as tokenization or sharing of physical products, whether it be a home or a holiday piece of land that you share with 5 or 6 friends, right? All sharing different parts or different amounts of shares within the organization or whatever DAO you put up, whatever you want to put up with. I've seen people developing solar farms and rationing out, lots of energy, natural sunlight energy through solar. That I absolutely love. So you're buying shares of that energy. You're buying shares of that company and that hardware and the software. I've seen people obviously with art, precious art. I have a friend that has actually worked on the ERC 721 protocol, the NFT protocol, and he did it. The idea came to fruition while they were working on setting up IP kind of rights management for precious pieces of art. I'm not talking, Bored Apes or Beeples. I'm talking, real antiques, a real crazy art. And
Hey, we love our Beeples here though too. Okay.
no, we love Beeple, man. He's one of us. I love that story. The guy makes $46.5 million overnight. And you know what? Actually, I shouldn't say overnight. He chipped away at it for years, that guy. And he did something. His artwork sold. He is the highest paid living artist in history right now. And he's Joe graphic designer. I love it. I love it.
And by the way, just a quick aside, if I had the opportunity to go to his studio grand opening down in Charleston, South Carolina, and was absolutely blown away by how amazing that space is and what he's done with the venue and just kind of all the thoughtfulness that he's put into curating both a physical art environment and a digital art environment. I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but I really couldn't, recommend it enough. It's a really amazing experience.
Yeah, he did it right, and in fact, I really liked. He was like one of the first people to really package some kind of physical type of accompaniment with his digital NFT art, and his casing, that bespoke casing that he has with a digital print. I just love that. I think he did a great job. He was really straightforward with the project, and he did well. And kudos. Those are there you go. Let me see.
Yep. There you go.
Awesome, man.
That one right here on the desk. Oh,
that's a good one.
There you go.
Very nice. I love it. At some point, I'll pick one up when they go to on the secondary market. But fantastic. Love it. Those physical. I've heard of precious bottles of wine. You're a wine connoisseur, or maybe it's like a bourbon or something you're into. That's pretty cool. You're like, hey man, I'm part owner in this 400-year-old bottle of French wine. Like, you'd never be able to be an owner, but now you can share in the whole idea of it. It's really, really, really cool. And I think we're just scratching the surface once people, like, it gets out of the innovation curve and back, into where normies can really digest this and actually start to use NFTs in a very constructive way and dream about what they want to dream about. I think it'll be a very interesting time for us.
Yeah, and it's probably worth reiterating that this industry is still so nascent, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even for someone that's been around since 2017, and that is certainly not as long as many other kind of crypto native people. But it is, this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg in terms of where we can go as an industry. The years might tick by, and we witness events like FTX and Lunaterra, and might consider, the time we spend here the equivalent to like dog years, right? It ages you exponentially. But you just need to have that perspective that everything is still really incredibly early here, and we are again, I'll just come back to where I started, building the plane as we're flying in here. So.
Yeah, and it's really important for people to understand. It was funny. I had this young entrepreneur and CEO of a tech startup, a Web3 tech startup, come up, and I'm like, "Wow, you worked on Tindermint, you worked on this, I'm like, my gosh, I'm like, you're OG and half my age. And it's kind of funny. But it's true. You know, I got started in 2013. I was sitting with developers and had some really, really interesting conversations before, during, and after work. Fell in love with it and started to learn about the technology before the DeFi almost. And, you know, meaning cryptography and what cryptography could do to DeFi and say tokenization, if you will. And just fell in love with it. Got into mining down the road and mining Ethereum in 2017. A lot of fun, learned. And again, it was experimentation and learning. You know, you build it, it works. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe New York State is not the best place for a mining rig. So
No,
I learned my lesson there.
that's the thing about crypto. It's really best experienced by trying it yourself. And
Yeah.
there's really no substitute to just going out there and figuring it out on your own, you know, with the assistance of you know, plenty of the resources that are publicly available out there, but just getting your hands on it.
Yeah, and if you're trying things out and you don't like the way something works, you could refine it. You could actually help the company build it better, whether it's user experience, code based, or just start your own company or project and see who wants to bite on it and help you and contribute. So there's lots of options, and it really is a wonderful, exciting time. And you're 100% right, Colin. It's like it's just a speck of dust on the timeline of life. But it's really important. It's super important that people don't get consumed by winning or losing, red or green, up or down. They get hypnotized or encouraged by how this technology can fundamentally change business relationships.
That's right. This is not a
And
zero-sum game, right?
right.
This is not about slicing up a pie. It's about expanding the pie to you know, heights that we've really never previously seen, because these are brand new markets that we're building.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I'm sure you're like me. You'll turn on the news or you'll watch this or whatever it is, and you're like, you know what? Blockchain can solve that. I've had a nickel for every time I said that. You know, game over. But there's so many things, and it's just being set free, and it's really exciting. I, much like a lot of things in Web3, it took blockchain technology or cryptology in 2010, Satoshi invents this, but that was the cypherpunks, depending on what story you believe. It took 2008 financial collapse for someone or a group of people to say, never again, never again. 2010 rolls out, and even that's why it started. That it wasn't to make people rich. It wasn't to tokenize everything under the sun. And people are not even up to that point that, say, you and I were in 2010 or 13 or 17 for you. Mm-hmm. You know, they're still learning the power of what this can do. And then there are other factions or organizations that are desperately fearful of this technology because it means you have to tell the truth.
That's right. Yes.
So I'd like to see a world filled with that. It'd be a real interesting experiment, wouldn't it? That's why I'm involved. So as we wrap up, Colin, so many things in here. I want to have you back and talk about different points, legal, financial, whatever it may be. Do you have any updates on the project? Any events coming up you want to throw out there to our audience?
So nothing substantial in the hopper in the terms of events between now and the end of the year. But of course, the kind of the spring conference circuit will certainly start up just on the other side of the new year here. One that we traditionally attend is ETH Denver. Of course, it's very heavy developer focused, and we always have a good time there, and it's always really like very high EV plus kind of an opportunity for the entire team and the organization. And then there's going to be lots of other events similar in nature in the months after that. So,
yeah, keep me posted, Collin, on any kind of Twitter X forums that you're going to be doing or live events. Would love to join in, help, and be a speaker or a moderator or whatever you need. Interesting project here. We want to learn more. Where can our readers or viewers find you?
StealthTest.com.
Cool. Yep. And we'll drop all the important links, the show links below soon, and everyone can check it out, get involved, hit their Discord community. That's generally where most of the real dialogue happens, and get involved. It's a really interesting project. We like it. We're going to start to, I kind of want to do a demo of it myself, perhaps with some developers.
Rich.
What?
Let's go, Rich.
Yeah, let's go. Definitely going to do that. And we really appreciate you being on and, spending so much time with us, Collin. It's a really interesting product, and we encourage everyone to go for it and try it.
Thanks so much for having me, Rich. Really appreciate it.